This episode is brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. What do you bring to a holiday party? Simple, a bottle of Casamigos. Because nothing gets the party started like a Casamigos margarita, which isn't just for summer. In fact, it's the perfect pour all year round. Casamigos is the gift that always feels right, because anything goes with my Casamigos. Please drink responsibly. Imported by Casamigos Spirits Company, White Plains, New York. Casamigos Tequila, 40% alcohol by volume.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
This October, the wrong station celebrates a decade of dread. You can read the show notes to discover terrible new ways to celebrate with us. Today's episode, Cormorant Isle, is written by Alexander Saxton and performed by Anthony Botelho. You charter a small, flat-bottomed boat out to the island where the cormorants live. The weather is hot. It was never this humid when you were young. And there's a thin red haze of smoke, like twilight, hanging in between you and the sun. You can feel it beginning to scratch in the back of your throat. Your eyes feel red and 10% too large for their sockets. The pilot behind you is wearing a mask and dark glasses. Long, loose sleeves that cover part of their hands. More and more people dress like this, despite the heat. The birds appear before you come in sight of the island. Your boat enters the wide, dark channel between dark willows, and then the birds are among you, winging low across the waves, blacker than the black water, silent in their streaks of flight. There's a great sense of homecoming around you. When they fold their wings and slither underneath the water, you recognize their silhouettes from childhood books of paleontology, where brightly illustrated Hesperornitforms, dawnbirds, slithered down the volcano-warmed shelves of Cretaceous seas. When the hunters come to slaughter these birds, they don't see those illustrations in their heads. The boat slows around a bend in the channel, and the island comes in view. Tall, dead trees, their whiteness reddened by the smoky sun, all crowned with great black birds, the reddish clouds behind them. You can hear it now, the tumult of this island, like a distant crowd, like human voices blended all together. The skies thicken with low-flying birds as you approach. The shores are pale with their acidic guano. The smell of it, heated by the dull sun, comes sharp through the smoke. The pilot behind you makes a disgusted sound. You adjust your sweltering mask. When he noses the craft into the shallows of the island's southern tip, you jump off and tell him you'll call when you're ready to be picked up. "It'll cost you $70. He shouts. This is outrageous, and not what you agreed. But you tell him, fine. You turn away from the water and refuse to look back as he pulls away. You're left alone with just the birds, just the heat, just the smell of them, and just yourself. You set off through the dead white trees. Now the sound, that stadium murmur, is all around you. Now everywhere you look, the birds peer out from plastic nests, their feathers black, their throats orange as the setting sun, their eyes like flakes of iridescent plastic floating green beneath the water's surface. The birds are crowned black, and their beaks are hooked. Their heads move this way and that, slickly, smooth and uncanny, making their eyes and throats flash. They emerge up out of the water like a tide and pose on the blazing rocks or bare skulls of the trees with their wings spread wide to funnel sunlight down toward their hearts. Fish writhe and die in their beaks as they swarm in. One bird on the rocks nearby bends its head to vomit and disgorge an entire alewife, and watch it die a second death spasming on the white-smeared rocks. The birds are curious animals, bright. They care so tenderly for their young as they fish the waters bare and kill the trees. Of course we hate them. They are so like us. Now you're deep enough into the bird-killed forest that you've left black waters and red reflections far behind. Dead eggs crunch underneath your boots, and rotted cormorants. The dying day only burns hotter. There was a woman rescued once, you remember, from an island where all her people had been slaughtered 20 or 30 years before. She was dressed in a gown made entirely of cormorant feathers, green and black. When she died ashore a few weeks later, she was the last person ever to speak the language of her birth. All these things are connected. All these things. The red sun, and the death of the woman in the cormorant gown, and the death of the forest on this island, and the death of the world itself. Dead forests in the sky and dead forests on the ground. You hike deeper. You don't know why you came here. You knew you had to. Why worry so much? Reality itself is fraying at its edges, killed by the dripping onslaught of acid shit. You came here because the story said you had to come here. And reasonable things are no longer done in what remains of reality, and so why, therefore, in story? You reach the center of the forest, and the trees are black with cormorants, black from root to tip, with the birds clutching so thickly to the bark that the trees themselves seem furred with emerald black. The lower birds are caked and matted with the confluence of flowing shit from further up, blinking down at you from crusted eyes and shivering their chunky slabs of feather. Those higher up are all but lost in smoke. The smell here should be beyond bearing, but it feels very natural to you now. There is something in the middle of this glade. It's crouched forward on all fours, naked and caked and crusted, as all things are. The cormorants have been creating him. He is like them, and like us. He has thin black wings all folded back, and horns of black feathers swept back from his wide forehead, and a long, thin beak descending down from the drawn-back, painful grimace of his lips. His eyes stare wildly, like theirs, like ours. He tries to fly, but is too heavy and ungainly, and crashes back to earth, looking at you wildly. His neck is snaked and 6 feet long. You approach gently, and when he trusts you, you produce the long, thin knife from your hip and put it down through the muscle stretching taut between the keel bone and underside of his wings. Most of the bleeding is internal and doesn't get on any more of your clothes than on the thick hide gloves that guard your hands. No institute or civic body has sent you to do this. You don't know if it's an act of conservation or nihilistic destruction. You no longer have any criteria by which to judge your actions. But it feels like a needful thing. And when you look down at the floor of the glade, you see it's been done before, and that there are 2 other of these twisted bodies lying down among the autumn leaves of dead feathers and rotting suliform bodies. 2 or 3 years, then, this has been happening, you decide. It must be the new normal. What is to be done? You throw the knife away and turn back toward the water, surrounded by the mourning cries of those 100,000 birds. When you get back to the rocky shore, you call the launch, and on the other end he says tersely that he'll be there soon. You hang up and crouch and wait. The cormorant suns itself upon the rocks nearby. You wonder how many there'll be next year, how many days of red smoke, how many new black flights of birds. When the pilot shows up with that flat-bottomed launch, he asks you nothing about the blood on your glove, and you say nothing to him either. You jump across a band of black water into the boat. The little craft reverses, and then, among the outbound flights of birds, you turn for home, beneath the reddened sun. The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Join us today at patreon.com/thewrongstation for bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and additional goodies celebrating our decade of dread. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botelho, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citrin, and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow us on social media at The Wrong Station, or email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.